The quiet one in the family is almost never the one you think. This story hit different. Stay for the whole thing and hit subscribe while you're here. I was sitting in my car outside my parents' house, watching my dad mow a lawn I'd been paying for years. He didn't know that. Neither did my mom. My name is Keaton Mercer. I was 34 when all this went down, and I'm telling it now, after the dust settled, because at the time, I could barely breathe through it. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. For a little over 5 years, I sent my parents exactly $2,850 a month, like clockwork. No phone calls, no birthday strings attached, just money. Automatic transfer. I labeled it utilities, but we both knew it was more than that. They never said thank you. Not once. And the kicker? They didn't even know it came from me. Calder, my older brother, the family poster boy, had their banking logins. He rerouted the deposits and let them think he was footing the bill, the same brother they never shut up about. Dr. Calder Mercer, they'd say, stretching out the title like it tasted expensive. The surgeon, the savior, the golden one who took care of everyone. At family gatherings, they called me our little numbers guy. Like I was 10 years old and pushing buttons on a calculator for fun. Once, at Thanksgiving, my dad clapped Calder on the back and said, "Good thing at least one of my boys became a real man." I didn't correct them. Not then. Not when my aunt called me quiet but helpful. Not when I watched my own parents beam at Calder for buying them a car I'd paid off. The truth? I was the chief financial officer of a public company. I had final sign-off on six-figure donations, and I approved the kind of grants that made entire nonprofits survive. I wasn't running spreadsheets, I was running decisions, big ones. But in my family, attention came with strings. If you got noticed, it usually came with a dig. Calder sucked the oxygen out of every room. My mom, Marla, chased status like it owed her something. My dad, Kent, cared more about looking strong than being decent. That combo made Calder untouchable. Me, I stayed useful and invisible. The payment started after Mom said the mortgage felt tight. I told myself it was temporary. Temporary became normal. Normal became silent. Then therapy happened. Dr. Selena Marquez, a straight shooter in her 50s, looked me dead in the eye and said, "A boundary isn't punishment. It's a rule for access." That line stuck. I didn't know when I'd draw the line, but I knew I would. One day, I'd stop being the family's invisible wallet while Calder played the hero with my money. And that line started forming the day I got the Gala invite with his name in bold, and mine not even spelled right. The invitation was thick stock paper with gold lettering, the kind of thing you send when you're more interested in being seen than being supported. Calder's name was bold at the top. Mine was misspelled. I showed up anyway. The drake looked like money had exploded across every surface. Glass, silver, white roses stacked 6 feet tall. A guy in a tux held the door open like I was supposed to tip him just for existing. Inside, everyone spoke like they were trying not to disturb the price tags on the chairs. 200 people, maybe more. Suits that didn't fit right. Gowns that looked rented but well steamed. The fake elegance of a hospital gala wrapped around Calder's smug face on a banner up front. Excellence in leadership. Calder wasn't just the surgeon everyone praised. For the last year, the hospital had put him in charge of a shiny new program initiative. Fundraising dinners, applicant emails, the public-facing stuff. He had access to the donor list and the communications pipeline, which meant when he spoke, people assumed the hospital had signed off. I walked in alone. My mom gave me a tight hug like she was hugging a coworker in the hallway. My dad shook my hand. Firm, quick, nothing warm about it. Calder glanced over and then turned back to a group of donors like I was part of the wallpaper. That told me exactly where I stood. My name card was buried in the far corner of the ballroom, back table, right by the swinging kitchen doors. You could hear trays clattering and staff yelling, "Corner," every 3 minutes. I figured it was a mistake, until my Aunt Darlene intercepted me halfway across the room with her fake sweet voice. "Oh good, you found your spot. We thought this would be nice and quiet for you." Her daughter Hollis chimed in louder, grinning like she was helping. "And it's out of the photo line so you won't get flashed in the eyes during speeches." I sat down and counted the people at the table. None of them were family. 2 looked like +1s who didn't even know whose promotion they were clapping for. One woman asked what I did. I said, "Finance." She smiled, nodded, and immediately turned to the guy on her left. Conversation over. Meanwhile, up front, my mom was holding court like she was on the board. My dad laughed too loud at every joke. Calder floated through tables, shaking hands, throwing that easy charm around like it cost him nothing. I checked my phone. Mallory had texted, board call reminder, plus a note that St. Halston's proposal was still waiting for my signature. I wrote back one word, hold. Then I saw 2 faces near the bar I recognized. Fundraising officers from a nonprofit we'd funded last year. That's when the discomfort turned sharp. They knew who I was, at least on paper. If they saw me parked next to the dish return, they'd start asking questions. The night had that loaded feeling. like something fake was about to snap. You could feel Calder gearing up for a speech. You could feel my parents already clapping in their heads. The lights dimmed just enough to make the stage feel bigger than it was, and Calder stepped into it like he'd been waiting his whole life for that exact moment. He didn't rush. He smiled first, slow and confident, like he already knew how this would land. Then he started talking in that smooth, practiced voice that made people lean in without realizing it. Behind him, a slideshow kicked on. Awards, hospital shots, him in a white coat, shaking hands, laughing with patience. There was even a family photo up there, my parents and Calder at some backyard thing. I wasn't in it. I already knew why. I'd taken the picture. He thanked my parents like they were the foundation of modern medicine. He talked about sacrifice, long nights, pressure, all the usual lines, delivered clean. People nodded like they were part of it. Then he shifted. "I'm proud to announce," he said, pausing just enough, "that we've secured a private grant of $1 million to launch a new program here at St. Halston." The room woke up, heads lifted, phones came out. He kept going like it was already done. "This funding is locked in through my connections, and it's going to put our department at the front of the field." That word, locked, hit me wrong. People started clapping before he even finished the sentence. My mom pressed a hand to her chest like she might cry. My dad stood up halfway, nodding like he'd personally coached Calder through med school. I sat there, hands still, jaw tight. Calder soaked it in. He didn't correct anything. He didn't hedge. He let it sit like a fact already signed and delivered. Then my mom got the microphone. She stepped up like she'd been waiting for her turn just as much as he had. "Calder has always been the one we could count on," she said, voice warm and loud. "He takes care of everyone, even us." More clapping, louder this time. Then she added, casual as anything, "Keaton's here too, somewhere in the back. He's in accounting." A few people laughed, not mean, just easy, like it made sense. I didn't move. I didn't look up. That's when a man in a dark suit stopped at my table. He studied me for half a second, like something didn't match. "Keaton Mercer?" he asked, keeping his voice low. I nodded once. "That's me. I'm Gideon Sloan, board member at St. Halston. We met briefly at a funding review last year." "I remember," I said, even though I barely did. He glanced toward the stage, then back at me. "We've been waiting on your final sign-off for the $1 million. He said it like we were discussing dinner plans. I kept my voice even. "Who told you it was guaranteed?" Gideon hesitated, then tilted his head toward Calder. "Your brother's been telling donors and applicants it's secured. He sent preliminary acceptance letters last week." Something in my chest locked up hard. I didn't correct him, not yet. I pushed my chair back slowly, stood up, and fixed my eyes on the stage as Calder kept smiling under those lights. I stepped forward while my mom still had the mic. No drama, just done. The kind of done that doesn't shake, it sets. The noise in the room slowed, not all at once, but in waves, like people felt something shift and couldn't name it yet. I stood just off center stage and said loud enough for every table to hear, "Quick question, Mom, Dad, how much has Calder sent you in the last 5 years?" My dad flinched like I'd slapped him. "Not the time, Keaton," he barked. His voice was tight, not shocked, defensive. Calder reached for the mic with this half smile, trying to laugh like I was being ridiculous. "Let's save this for later, all right?" My mom didn't hand him the mic. She just looked at me with that camera-ready smile she always wore when things were cracking underneath. "We don't really get money from you, Keaton." A few people laughed quietly. Some gasped. Mostly the room went cold. I caught Gideon Sloan's face, eyebrows drawn, confusion turning to realization. He knew what that meant. A lie had just been told, and someone told it loud. "Open your banking app," I said to my mom, flat and clear. "Right now." She blinked, startled. My dad growled, "Keaton, that's enough." But I saw her fingers twitch. Her head turned slightly toward him like she was waiting for backup. Then she reached into her purse. Curiosity beat denial. Her hands moved slow. She unlocked the phone, tapped, scrolled, and stared at the balance. I saw the exact second her expression changed, like a plug had been pulled out of a socket. She turned the screen so only I could see. "A few $100s, max. Now check the history," I said. "Go back 5 years." She didn't speak. She scrolled. Her lips parted. Her hands started shaking. The list was all there. Monthly deposits. Same day. Same amount. Every time. Transferred out immediately. She looked up, pale. "Where did it go?" she whispered. I leaned in. "That's your question. You should ask Calder." My dad yanked the phone out of her hands like force could change the numbers on the screen. Calder moved closer, eyes narrow. "This is private," he snapped. "Then answer it," I said, calm as ever. "Do you have access to their login?" He didn't nod. He didn't shake his head. He just started talking. "I've been investing for them. helping them long term. You don't understand the full picture. That's when my mom said quietly, like she wasn't sure if she was asking me or herself. He showed us statements. I nodded. Statements can be faked, especially when they're PDF files you print at home and hand to someone who trusts you. Calder's face didn't twitch. That was the tell. He wasn't surprised. He'd been caught before the evidence hit the table. I turned and pointed at the screen still glowing in my dad's hand. You think that's respect? That's theft. Calder stepped toward me like he was going to shut it down. I didn't move. I raised my voice just enough. You wanted attention? You've got it. Calder didn't miss a beat. The second he realized the room was watching, he switched gears like he'd rehearsed it. Keaton's just confused, he said with a warm chuckle, like he was calming down a toddler. He's under a lot of pressure lately, probably going through something. My dad jumped in, voice louder than it needed to be. You're humiliating your mother. This isn't how we do things in public. Not a word about the missing money, not a word about the lies, just tone policing, like always. That's when Gideon Sloan stepped forward and spoke up. Mr. Mercer, he said, directing it at me, are you the signatory for the corporate grant proposal? He wasn't picking a side, he was checking facts, real ones. Before I could answer, Calder cut in again. My brother's just an accountant. He doesn't decide things like that. That line hit me harder than I expected, not because it was new, but because it was exactly what they always said behind my back, dismissive, clean, and sharp. I didn't respond with words. I took my phone out of my jacket, unlocked it, and hit speed dial. I held it up so everyone could see, then hit speaker. Mallory Keene, my assistant answered, immediate and alert. It's Keaton, Patch and Russell Wainwright, now. She didn't ask why. Understood. The whole room leaned in. Calder shifted uncomfortably. My mom looked confused, like she'd just been told a different version of the same story she always believed. 30 seconds later, Russell's voice came through. Steady, direct, no fluff. Keaton? I'm on. What's going on? I need you to confirm my role for the people in this room, I said. Plain and clear. Russell didn't hesitate. Keaton Mercer is Chief Financial Officer at Endrel Group. He is the final authority on all corporate giving above $125,000, including the St. Halston medical proposal, which is still pending his direct approval. The temperature in the room dropped. My dad folded his arms, breathing through his nose. My mom looked like she didn't know who I was anymore. Maybe for the first time, she actually didn't. Then Dr. Noel Stanton, Chief Executive Officer of the hospital, stood up near the edge of the platform. She didn't look shocked. She looked like compliance had just walked in. She locked eyes with Calder and asked one thing. Did you represent to donors and applicants that the $1 million was secured? Calder adjusted his tie. I was optimistic. Look, we're working closely with the company. Keaton's here. It's in process. That's not what I asked. He kept dancing. It only made it worse. So I stepped in. He didn't just promise it. He sent out preliminary acceptance letters to residents and drafted a press release. He called it guaranteed. I pulled up the files on my phone and showed Gideon, who winced the second he saw the subject line. That meant the hospital wasn't just misled internally. They were now publicly exposed. Calder saw it slipping, so he made his last play. This is personal. He's jealous. I've been the one supporting our family, and Keaton's always resented that. That line used to work, but now there were screenshots, signatures, and a board chair live on speaker. I turned to the crowd and said one sentence, flat as a gavel. He's been using my name to lie, and now you all know it. Noel Stanton didn't waste time. She looked me dead in the eye and asked, is the grant moving forward? No raised voice, no drama, just facts. Because now the hospital was exposed, and someone had to clean it up before it spread. Before I could speak, Calder stepped toward me and hissed low enough for only a few of us to hear. Don't do this, like he still thought this was between us, like he deserved mercy after pocketing my work and my silence. Then my dad muttered, you're killing the family, Keaton, like that was the worst sin in the room. I turned and looked at both of them, my mother, frozen, my father, defensive, and I said it, clear and direct. You didn't protect me for years, you protected the story. That line cracked something open. You could feel it. I turned back to Noel and Gideon. As of this moment, I said, the $1 million proposal under Calder's program is on immediate hold. No funds will be released. The explosion wasn't physical, it was verbal. People talking over each other, board members asking questions, donors pulling out phones. A few residents looked like they wanted to sink through the floor. Russell, still on speaker, said what he had to. Noted, it'll be documented and reviewed formally through the next board session. I raised my hand, not to silence, just to steer. I'm not doing this to punish the students. I'm doing it because the entire program pitch was built on misrepresentation. I won't let my company fund something that rewards fraud, even if the face of it is my brother. The room went quiet again, and this time it wasn't shocked silence. It was waiting. I kept going. The hospital can reapply within 90 days under a new program lead with full compliance review and oversight from both sides. No shortcuts, no Calder. Noel gave a single nod. She already knew this was the only path forward. Anything else would have been damage control with no spine. Then I made my move. Russell, I said, I want to initiate a motion to redirect the full $1 million to a new scholarship fund, focused on finance, accounting, and business students from overlooked communities. There was a pause. You want to transfer the grant? Russell asked. Yes, I want it to become a permanent fund, renewable, transparent, with board oversight from day one. I didn't name it after myself, I called it what it was meant to be. The Unseen Ledger Scholarship. And to be clear, none of it was the hospital's money until I signed it. I was moving our giving commitment into a scholarship fund instead, and any future request from St. Halston would have to come back through a new application as its own separate ask, because some people keep the lights on, balance the books, clean up the messes, and never get credit. Gideon nodded like he'd been waiting for someone to finally say that out loud. Noel gave me the kind of look you give someone who just took a pile of rubble and drew a blueprint out of it. Calder tried one last spin. I invested their money. It was long-term. It's just not liquid right now. That's when my mother, voice small but finally real, asked the question I'd been waiting to hear come from someone else. Where is it then, Calder? He opened his mouth, then shut it. No clean answer, just sweat. I didn't wait for another excuse. I stepped down from the stage. My legs were shaking under me, not from fear, but from release. I wasn't holding the story up anymore. I was tearing it down. I walked straight out of that ballroom and didn't look back. I didn't wait to see who clapped, who whispered, who clung to Calder's side like his reputation might still be contagious. Let them decide whose version of the story they wanted to believe. I had work to do. The fallout came fast. Wah. Noel Stanton called me before I even made it to my hotel room. She didn't waste time. The board's triggering an emergency review tonight, she said. Your brother's claims weren't the only loose thread. There's more under this. She didn't explain. She didn't have to. 5 minutes later, Mallory sent a flood of texts. Time-stamped footage from the event had already made it to someone's feed. Our corporate counsel was asking for a full timeline, plus every document tied to the St. Halston proposal. Then I got the message that hit me hardest. It was from Bryn, Calder's wife. It was short, just a voice note. Her voice sounded like it had been wrung dry. He refinanced the house without telling me. The kid's education account is gone. I found paperwork in his closet. I'm done. No yelling, no drama, just the weight of it. By morning, the damage started sorting itself into piles. Mallory flagged the double bookkeeping first. Bank statements my parents had been shown that didn't match the real data. Clean balances, no visible transfers, no red flags. On paper, everything looked fine. But the actual bank confirmed they'd never generated those PDF files. They weren't fake accounts, just fake versions of the real ones, scrubbed before being handed off to two people too trusting to question. Then it got worse. It wasn't just one account. A forensic accountant flagged a second trail. Funds moved from my parents' deposits into a brokerage that screamed high-risk trading. That part didn't shock me. Calder always thought he was smarter than the odds. What had surprised me was the consulting line. A chunk of that money had gone to a private party through monthly wires labeled as consulting retainers, but the recipient wasn't listed anywhere official. It took some digging, and then a quiet call from an attorney Noel brought in to confirm what we were looking at. A likely private settlement, he said, tied to a prior compliance issue involving your brother. Translation: Calder had paid someone to keep their mouth shut. The full picture started building piece by piece. Credit reports, loan documents, buried debt. My parents had a second mortgage they didn't remember signing. Multiple credit cards opened under an old address. Short-term personal loans pushed through online systems that don't verify identity the way they should. The total hole landed somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000. Then came the part that burned deeper than all of it. In one of our early sessions, Dr. Klein asked my mom if she ever noticed anything strange in the accounts. My mom went quiet, then finally said, I saw a couple of numbers that didn't add up, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. Why didn't you say something? I asked her. She didn't look at me when she answered. I didn't want a scandal. By then, Bryn had taken the kids and moved out. Calder was on unpaid leave pending the board's review. The family myth was falling apart in real time, and for once, I wasn't the one trying to patch it back together. About a week after the gala, my phone lit up with my mom's number. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice was soft. Keaton, the bank called. They're threatening foreclosure. We don't know how much we owe. Something's wrong. She sounded small, like she was shrinking with every word. I didn't say anything for a second. Then I heard the click. My dad had picked up the landline. He jumped right in. We just need a little support, son. You know how families work. We've always taken care of each other. I didn't let him keep going. No, don't play the family card. I've got every statement right here. I know about the second mortgage. I know about the fake balances Calder showed you. I know about the cards you didn't open yourselves. There was silence, not defensiveness, just stunned stillness. I'm not sending another dime into any account Calder can touch, I said. If I help, it'll be direct, controlled, transparent. My dad cleared his throat, tried again. We didn't know. I cut him off. That doesn't matter now. What matters is what happens next. Later that same day, Bryn texted me. Calder had shown up at her place trying to explain things. She said he was full of charm and zero answers. She asked if I knew a good lawyer. I sent her 3 names and told her not to wait. By the next morning, I had a plan laid out. I called my parents back and gave them terms. I'll help stabilize the house, just the house, but here's the deal. Full financial transparency, a third-party advisor of my choosing, and you both start family therapy. My dad didn't even pause before scoffing. We don't need therapy, we need breathing room. You want to keep the house? I said. Those are the options. This isn't up for discussion. I wasn't proud of how cold I sounded, but I wasn't budging. Eventually they agreed, not out of clarity, but out of pressure. The same way Calder had folded when the room turned on him. I set up the payments to go straight to the lender, no middle steps. I covered just enough to stop the foreclosure and bring the balance down to manageable. Escrow got a full review from my advisor. Every account was frozen from taking on new credit. No exceptions. They couldn't even get a store card without approval. I told them this wasn't punishment. It was the only way forward. For the first time in my life, I wasn't paying for love. I wasn't trying to win their attention. I was setting terms, building structure, and locking the doors Calder had used like his own personal vault. They could stay in the house, but they couldn't stay in denial. Therapy started in a beige office with too much sunlight and not enough chairs that didn't squeak. Dr. Evan Klein was in his late 40s, calm but sharp. He didn't ask soft questions. He asked surgical ones, quick, pointed, and hard to squirm out of. First session, he looked at my parents and asked, "What does Keaton do for work?" My mom blinked like she needed context. My dad guessed, "He's in finances?" "Be specific," Dr. Klein said. "What's his title?" They couldn't answer. He moved on. "What city does he live in?" Again, they paused. My mom guessed wrong. My dad looked at me like I was the one being unfair. Dr. Klein didn't let it slide. "You praised Calder constantly. Do you even know what matters to Keaton?" My dad tried to pivot. "We respect both our sons. They just have different strengths." Dr. Klein didn't blink. "Respect is a feeling. What did you do to show it? Who did you ask about their lives? Who got your support without having to earn it every month?" Silence. My mom broke first. She didn't cry. She just exhaled like the truth was a slow leak. "When Calder looked good, I felt safe," she said. "When Keaton stayed quiet, I took it as permission." I didn't respond. I let that hang in the air like a warning. Meanwhile, my Aunt Darlene and Cousin Hollis had started their own version of the Fallout tour. Hollis told anyone who'd listen that I sabotaged a hospital gala out of bitterness. Darlene called me dangerous with money in a Facebook comment under a post I wasn't even tagged in. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself to people who were never in the room. I just said one sentence, over and over when it came up. "I don't fund lies." That became my line, my filter, my out. Noel Stanton kept me in the loop about the investigation. Calder wasn't just under review for the grant. There were internal concerns going back months. I didn't learn that from whispers. I heard it directly from her, through our corporate counsel. Timelines mattered now. Bryn kept me updated too, mostly about the kids. She didn't want them caught in Calder's mess. She also said something that stuck. He really believed his own story. He talked about it like he deserved everything. That part didn't surprise me. He always acted like reality was something he could edit if he just talked long enough. I kept building the scholarship with Russell and the board. We added an essay requirement, focus, quiet leadership, hidden value. Therapy didn't fix my parents, but it stripped the spotlight off Calder. And for the first time, they had to look at me. Not around me, not through me, at me. 1 year later, we hosted the first annual gala for the Unseen Ledger Scholarship. It wasn't some chandelier and caviar event. We booked a mid-sized ballroom in Evanston. Bright lights, clean lines, folding programs, and quiet pride. No hype, no fake smiles, just focus. We had 100 recipients in the room. Students studying finance, accounting, operations, and business analytics. Kids who'd been told their whole lives they were support people, never front stage. The ones who make systems work, keep books balanced, and spot the errors before anyone else even notices. I opened the program with a short speech. No theatrics, no long intro. "I'm not here to preach," I said. "I'm here to remind you. Being overlooked doesn't mean you're not holding weight. It usually means you're caring more than anyone else in the room." They didn't clap loud. They nodded. That mattered more. My parents showed up early. My mom brought a notebook. My dad wore a tie that didn't match his shirt, but he was trying. They sat near the front this time. not hidden behind anyone. No Calder standing in front of them. That simple shift meant more than they knew. Before the program started, my mom walked up with one of the foundation donors and did something I didn't expect. She put her hand lightly on my arm and said, "This is my son, Keaton. He built this." She didn't mention Calder. She didn't hedge. Her voice cracked halfway through, but she didn't correct it. The donor looked at me and smiled, then said, "This matters. Thank you for doing the real work." I nodded. That was enough. Later, during the closing toast, my dad stepped over and put a hand on my shoulder. No speech, just a low voice. I was wrong. That was it. But coming from him, it landed like a thunderclap. It wasn't everything, but it was real. Calder didn't come. I learned through Bryn that he was in treatment, under investigation from the licensing board, and their divorce had moved forward without much fight. He wasn't out to reclaim anything. There was no comeback storyline. Noel told me the hospital had resubmitted a new grant under a new lead. Separate cycle, separate request. Clean paperwork, clean process. I didn't block it. I just made sure it passed through the right channels with oversight from day one. After the gala ended, as people packed up their programs and wrapped up their thank yous, a student approached me near the stage. She said, "Would you mind taking a picture with me?" I started to say sure, and my mom stepped forward to take the phone, then stopped herself. She handed it to someone else and said, "No, this time I want you in it." The shutter clicked. It didn't fix the past, but I wasn't invisible anymore, and I wasn't paying for a seat. One last thing before you click away. If you've got the hype feature, tap it right now to support this video and push it out to more people. Then please subscribe and hit like because it's huge for us, and it's literally one click. And tell me this in the comments. Have you ever been the quiet fixer in your family, and what boundary did you set when you finally got tired of paying for everyone else's story?